It always amazes me when I look at balance sheets and you don't find the employees on there. And obviously, the company can't buy employees. I get that. But from that perspective, at the end of the day, you're engaging an asset to do work for you.
Warning: Damian Andrews' growing revenue and profit, if implemented, will put more money in your pocket. Please use with caution.
Damien Andrews for growing revenue and profit. And there is a lot of talk out there now about quantifying how human capital management contributes to financial returns. Now, this is becoming more and more of a buzz thing, and more important to be addressing because the demographics in the world have shifted. Now, it's not a surprise. It hasn't come as any great surprise. We've known for 40 years it's going to happen. The baby boomers retiring. There isn't the workforce to make that up. And part of that reason you'll see a lot of this now is because we need to be assessing more accurately how those employee returns are impacting on the bottom line, because we've got to be much more efficient in how we manage that. And this comes back again to supply and demand of labor. Essentially, the labor market has become less, well, there's less and less labor in the market, which means that it affects that supply and demand. And what we need to do now is work out, okay, how are we maximizing the return that we're getting on that? Because that's an area where we need to find more and more efficiency, because it's not a case in the past where if someone wasn't performing well, you could just get rid of them and employ someone else. And the pressure was on the wages to keep those wages down because, again, there was much more supply of labor. So today, different environment, we've got less labor available, and so we need to be able to get the maximum amount of return out of that labor. And this is where it's much, much more important to have a way of measuring that and linking that, because at the end of the day, although it's not, it always amazes me when I look at balance sheets and you don't find the employees on there. And obviously, the company can't buy employees. I get that. But from that perspective, at the end of the day, you're engaging an asset to do work for you. And when you buy a machine, it goes on the balance sheet and you depreciate that. Employees are slightly different. I mean, one, you don't buy them, obviously, but two, if you invest in them, their productivity goes up. And this is where, again, we need to spend more time understanding how that works. And yes, there are some very good systems, and there's some academic reports which I've seen recently. There was one recently that came out from Oxford University, which talks about that. And there was one done by JP Morgan Asset Management in 2022. And they talked about different ways of quantifying that human capital contribution to the bottom line effectively. And this is important, especially for bigger companies. It's becoming a reporting thing where for assessment of the valuation of the company, there are different tools of working out how to manage that, and that's really important. But from the perspective of what do you do in the real practical world, if you're operating an organization, and this is where it comes down to how do you manage those employees effectively to get returns? And a lot of that is to do with change management, and we have systems for that, which we implement many systems and allow change to happen. People, as much as people don't like change, if you manage them through that change well, they actually do like it. They like that growth opportunity. They see the values, and it's how you implement that. And we've got many successful stories of how that change has been implemented, from people using old time cards, handwritten time cards, going straight to using a mobile phone with an app and being that system being implemented within 2 weeks. Fantastic story. And those things can happen, and it is possible. It's just how you lead that. And this is, again, where we really need to be focusing because of the changing market demographics as far as labor goes. There is not the labor there, and it's not going to be there. There's not suddenly going to be a whole bunch of people. There's going to be a massive shift in how we do things. And part of that is we want to make sure that we find ways of managing those your employees to get that return. And part of that, I mean, it's simple things: appreciation, having a process in place, them regularly knowing what the value is they're contributing, all those kind of things. Old school caring and communication works really well. Obviously, it needs to be focused in a direction. That's where good leadership is important. You need to have a clear direction that everyone is aware of and moving in that same direction. So there's a number of factors there that need to all come together and come together harmoniously, from a clear direction, compelling vision of where the company is going, to then right down to the day-to-day, how you integrate, so people actually operate in a smooth manner. And part of that too is, how do you train people? We have systems where we implement micro learning, social learnings, and gamification. We put those together, and people are then constantly improving. The organization is constantly evolving, so you are not falling behind your competition. You can even get ahead of your competition. Falling behind is a bad thing. It gets very difficult to catch up. So what you need to do is have this constant improvement of how people operate, because if people get frustrated, if you're not improving how the systems are operating, the people can move on. They can go somewhere else. There'll be someone else that takes them, then you're left in lurch trying to find someone new. So you've got this extra cost of, trying to find another person, training them, another cost, and just the slowness to your business because that void has been created. That puts you on the back foot. You're falling behind immediately. But if you've got the right systems in place, where you have that clear vision, where you're going, you have the systems to manage the employees, a continuous improvement process like we have within our exceptional effort program, and all the way through down to the training, again, using social learning, micro learnings, and gamification, you can have these little things where the employees interact and it becomes fun. The learning process becomes fun. The systems become fun. They enjoy doing it. They want to come to work because it's a great place to be, both for their mental health and because it's fun to be there. And they're noticing the impact. If you can connect that, your purpose and what you're doing, to the impact, not just to the people that buy the products or services that you offer, but the wider world, and people connect to that, all of a sudden they become really, really motivated. So yeah, you'll notice a lot out there, and it's going to become more and more prevalent, that people will talk about this, how to quantify how human capital management contributes to the financial returns. And obviously it is obvious, and I think it's been obvious for years, that well-managed human capital a company with well-managed human capital performs much, much, much better financially than a company that doesn't. If you're not managing your human capital well, then you're probably falling behind, or are already behind. You may not know it. So this is Damien Andrews with Growing Revenue and Profit.